Then we go to another scene, and this one cuts over to Midgar, and it's with Zack. Now, we haven't seen Zack since the very beginning of the game, when he ran through Shinra troopers to rescue an unconscious Aerith from a crashed helicopter. You remember when he was running and the soldiers were like, hey, that guy's got a buster sword or something like, do you remember that?
Yeah, I do remember that.
He's got a buster sword.
I was like, oh, they all know what the sword is called, huh?
Yep.
Interesting. But he rescues Aerith. And that was a pretty major sign right at the beginning of this game that made it evident that Rebirth was going to carve kind of its own path, right? Because nobody knew what the heck was going on. This Zack stuff didn't and doesn't make any sense, because for whoever played Crisis Core, and this is a spoiler for that game, Zack dies. Saving Cloud's life at the end of that game, right? So he dies. He risks his life and he heroically basically gives his life to save Cloud, which, by the way, I actually really love the way that Zack is written in Crisis Core. Yeah. He's legitimately heroic. He's self-sacrificing. At the same time, he's like really fun-loving. He's relatable as a human. I just think he's really well written in Crisis Core.
Ooh. Hello to you too.
But in Crisis Core, where the ending of that game is the beginning of Final Fantasy VII, again, Zack dies and Cloud lives on. But then here in Rebirth, or so it seems, he's not dead. So this Zack survival mystery was actually first revealed at the end of Remake, if you remember, because after we finish off the end boss, then suddenly we see this cutscene of Zack walking into Midgar with Cloud in tow. And we're all like, so those of us who know the original 7 story or who know Crisis Core or both, we're like, what is happening? Zack is alive, like, or something equivalent to it, which could be cool or it could be lame depending on how it's done. And then we start asking a bunch of other questions, like, are these parallel universes? Which, if that's the case, boo.
Well, I think that is the case.
It might be the case, but let's talk about it because we see more of this in the future and I don't want to give too much away, but my opinion with these parallel universe ideas. So multiple parallel universes, for me, this is my personal opinion and you may disagree, they're cop-out to me because it instantly lowers the stakes in every story, right? Because, a character died. Oh, it doesn't matter because he's alive in a parallel universe, or a parallel dimension or whatever. So when you write a story so that there are virtually unlimited parallel stories of the same characters that are happening at the same time, I just throw my hands up because not only is it confusing and hard to keep track of, but it cheapens every character moment, every decision. And I hate that. You guys, stories are so much better when moments carry as much impact as they possibly can. They maximize the impact with each action, right? And the impact is simply dissipated with multiple dimensions or parallel universes or whatever. And the only films that I've enjoyed that really do a good job with the parallel universe thing are like comic book stories sometimes, not even all the time, but when they're not like taking themselves too seriously, and that's kind of part of the joke.
Yeah, because you're already not as bought in.
Right.
Yeah, you're just kind of like, okay, it's comic books, like, you get attached to them.
Didn't Into the Spider-Verse do that?
Spider-Verse does it, but they do it well.
How many more spider people are there? Save it for Comic-Con.
They brought in all the other characters.
This is an unpopular opinion, but like Into the Spider-Verse is like one of my favorite movies ever. It's super good, yeah.
I think it's a great movie.
Yeah, they bring in like noir Spider-Man and like the pig Spider-Man,
know, and it's ridiculous.
The anime girl, like all that stuff.
But it's meant to be kind of a joke.
Like, yeah, but the whole point is they go back to their timelines, which are not connected, right? And so the stakes change there. Yeah. Whereas like the next one, then they just go ham on it, and there's all these different dimensions, and it's like you're kind of losing the plot a little bit.
It's too much.
There's a third one, but I agree.
But then the only other time that worked was the live action Spider-Man with...
You're talking about Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield and Tom Holland, the three of them.
Yeah, where the three of them come together.
We can't do that, so naturally we're curious as to how your web situation works. That's all.
But if it's personal, I don't want to like pry, but I just think it's cool.
I wish I could tell you, but it's like I don't do it. Like I don't do breathing. Like breathing just happens.
Whoa.
And that's because it's not meant to be taken too seriously, and they limit it still, and it's still everything's happening in one dimension, in one like universe instead of like all these other ones, right? So that one kind of worked for me as well because the joke payoff and having the three actors together was kind of worth it for the entertainment sake of the movie.
Right.
But I almost always, when I see parallel universes, parallel dimensions, whatever, I don't like it. I never am as invested in this story. The endings never matter as much to me, and they're confusing.
And it's definitely what I would consider anti-JRPG, right?
Oh, really? Is this not like a JRPG? I guess Final Fantasy hasn't done this, but I didn't know about others.
Maybe there's other JRPGs where they had multiverses or parallel universes, but
they have like Dark World and Light World stuff.
But generally with JRPGs, it's like at a certain point, there is a loss that has to happen, or many losses, right? And those losses are final.
And they're impactful because they're final.
That adds to the gravity of the story, right? And so like, I question that too with Remake. Like, is it in fact a parallel universe thing, or is it something else entirely, right? And so when you delve into the whole like concept of psychosis, like I could see a scenario where it's not a matter of like multiple timelines or different universes. It's actually like a mental construct.
Okay, see, I'm interested in that idea, but then where would like this Zack thing be happening? In whose mind?
Hard to know. It could be happening in Aerith's mind. It could be happening.
But she's not the one suffering psychosis.
It could be in Cloud's mind.
But he doesn't know what's happening in that world. It's only Aerith who seems to know.
Who knows?
I think this is interesting, but I think you guys need to get over it. It's a parallel universe story.
You just need to get over this.
I don't think I'm going to get over it. Okay, I'm bummed about it because I'm afraid that there's no way they can make the ending good.
Sure.
Because of it.
But like, we knew that this was a parallel universe story at the end of Remake, right?
We suspected. We weren't for sure.
No, I mean, it's pretty heavy. If you've played Crisis Core, and like we talked about spoilers, right? Zack lives at the end of Remake.
Right, but then...
And then it shows Zack carrying Cloud's body as Cloud and Aerith pass each other.
Right.
They literally pass each other.
And to me, I just didn't know what that was, because I was just like, what's happening?
They're alternate dimensions because they can't see each other, but they're literally happening at the same time.
They're definitely alluding to that.
So like, yes, I just want to like reaffirm, like, you got to get over it because that's what's happening. But then at the same time, like...
I can't. I mustn't. I will not.
Well, hang on. The reason the Back to the Future movies are great is because they happen in the same universe, right? Like,
exactly. And those are alternate timelines that splinter from one point.
But they're happening in the same place. If Marty McFly dies in the future, then he vanishes in the past, right? So he's like gone. So the stakes are still there. But like alternate dimensions are kind of have a thing. Like if Marty McFly dies in this one, there's an infinite number of dimensions where Marty's fine, right?
No stakes.
So they're kind of going around with these two things. And I don't like the no stakes things either. That bugs me.
Yeah, I wonder if it's something different though, because like maybe it's not parallel universe, and this is why we don't know yet, right?
But then what is it?
Maybe it's something different. Like for example, Sephiroth has the ability to move between these things, right?
Yes.
And so maybe it's not a matter of a parallel universe, but maybe Sephiroth has actually bent time itself. So while these are part of the same timeline, but he's bent it like a mirror, right? And maybe his ultimate goal is to collapse a portion of that timeline for whatever nefarious purpose he has.
I don't want to give away the story because you haven't finished it, Ernest, but like they reference this later on in other chapters and they talk about the reunion, like the converging of worlds. Like this is something that Sephiroth is doing, and I won't talk about it much here. So like, I'm just saying, like, I agree with Jolie. At this point in the story, it's kind of frustrating because this is the first time we see Zack. It's like the promise of Zack coming back was awesome because Zack was such a...
He's like, this is Zack!
He's alive! That's
Zack.
amazing! And then the first thing we do when the game starts, we're playing as Zack. That's the guy with the Buster Sword. And like the entire party dies. Like Red is in a helicopter, all that stuff happens.
Yeah.
And then
I'm like, wait a minute.
He picks up Aerith and saves her and then like carries Cloud back too. So he has Aerith and Cloud. And that's what we get to at this point. So this flashback is Zack is like holed up in the slums of Midgar, and he's got like Aerith and Cloud that are passed out because like Zack and Aerith, they dated in Crisis Core, so he knows who like what's her name? Is it
Elmira?
Elmira, yeah. Anyway, I'll let you continue on the story, but this is like when she gets brought in and stuff, and he's like talking to her. But my question here is like, she references Cloud like as if she knows who Cloud is.
Oh.
But if Cloud's coming too, you'll just have to carry him.
In the other timeline or in the other universe, she says Cloud has been spending time with Aerith and her house to this point because that's happened in Remake, right? And she's like, she references Cloud, she says his name, but they shouldn't know each other in this.
But maybe
there's some shenanigans going on here.
Okay, so this is the thing. Like, the only way I can see this working is if there was a point where somebody split it into like timelines or worlds or something, and they all have to kind of unfold at the same time, but then they come back together into a single.
That could be cool.
That's the only way this is going to work to me.
That's what I think Sephiroth is doing, right? Because
to be honest with you, I don't know that it's Sephiroth that did it.
Well, it's us when we destroyed Fate.
Right, but it could have been, and I'll talk about this in just a second, actually. I'm just expressing my concerns.
Totally.
That when you have infinite characters and infinite timelines, nothing has impact, and it's lame.
And nothing matters.
It's lame. Especially because, like, the reason that 7 original was so impactful is because there were moments in that game that were final, that nobody expected, that had huge impact and affected the rest of the game like crazy, right?
Sure.
So that's one of the main reasons why 7 original is so good. If they eliminate the reason why 7 was good when they do Rebirth and they're not able to tie it all back together, it's going to be lame.
Yeah, but you can't do that, though.
Why?
Because you're saying this needs to be a remake of those old games.
No, I'm not.
No.
It could go totally different directions.
But the cool thing about this remake trilogy is that it's not the original game. It's a different sequence of events.
But if you're going to change the game, which they should,
yes.
and a lot of the changes are good, the changes have to be better than the original.
Well, I understand.
You can't change it just to make it suck.
Yes,
more,
I agree.
you know?
Like, they still need to have a conclusion. They need to answer all our questions, right? Like, they're promising.
They promised.
I totally agree with you. So, like,
but they got to tie a bone in it, which means there has to be a finality.
Right.
Like
but you can't compare the original Final Fantasy VII to this game because they're different. It's a remake in name only.
I get you.
Right.
And I'm okay with it being different. But what I'm saying is it can't suck.
Totally. I agree.
And I'm worried it's going to suck.
I have major concerns about what they're doing here because it does feel like it's that infinite timeline scenario.
Yeah, it does.
But I like the idea of it like, okay, at the end of Remake, it's the same game, right?
Yeah.
But then you kill Fate, and then all of a sudden, like, the Whispers and all the things.
And then it's different.
It's different, right?
And that's cool.
It's like you've changed something. Zack lives, something's happening, some shenanigans are happening. I don't care if they live in that space for a little bit, if they tie it back up and there is a single final consequence. I don't even want there to be two happy worlds. I don't want it to be like...
Right, me neither.
Zack is
one.
fine here.
You got to bring them all back together, merge them.
Yeah, if Zack is fine in one time, but then like it's the other one.
Maybe that's the reunion, you know?
Yeah, like I want it to, like, the stakes to happen to everybody.
Yeah, but they need to make it clear. They got to add clarity to this whole thing.
Oh yeah, make it make sense.
And then they just have to make it a final ending that works, you know? And ideally would have one character for each person.
Well, the story's already been written at this point, so we're arguing the...
I hope.
No, it's done. I mean, I'm sure this thing is like in production already. Like it's done.
It is in production actually, but that doesn't matter. It better not suck. Like I'm not here to convince them. I know that they've already decided, but if it sucks, that doesn't mean I'm going to be happy about it.
I'm not a fan of the multiple universe thing at all, and I don't want that. But I would actually love it if it was more of one of those things where Sephiroth, by some power or something that he discovered, was able to actually not fracture the timeline, but warp it. And we're unwinding it as we go through it, and then it ends up in a certain spot.
That's possible. But again, that's really hard to show an audience, right? So they're going to have to, if they go that way, they just got to make it real crystal clear. The other thing that I'll say, and then I'll get back to what the scene actually is, because I'm really passionate about this, you guys. I care.
I have theories too, yeah.
The other thing that I'll say about this is that, like, there's a difference between splitting into two parallel universes and splitting into like infinite or tons of them. Mm-hmm. And again, the more you split, the less impact a single timeline will have.
Yeah.
And at this point, we're thinking, oh, it might be two.
At this point.
Right. And I'm like, okay, I can go on that ride, maybe, even though I'm not a huge fan about it.
Sure.
I won't give anything away, but down in the future, I'm concerned that it's not just two. Like, it's like,
see,
no.
There's like this obsession with being like correct with physics. Because the theory of, alternate dimensions actually is real. Like,
oh yeah, I don't.
So they'll be like, well, you can't just have two alternate timelines. They have to have infinite numbers. So it's like,
come on, you can't have two either. So shut up.
Yeah, I'm like, who cares? Just make it Back to the Future. Everyone loves Back to the Future.
See, and I was hoping it was going to be something more like that.